All great leaders since Moses have known that an enemy must be crushed completely. If one ember is left alight, the fire will eventually break out. Likewise, that enemy will recover and seek revenge. Crush him not only in body, but in spirit.
Let's learn Kautilya's view on this.
One should never ignore an enemy, knowing him to be weak. He becomes dangerous in due course, like the spark of fire in a haystack.
The wisdom behind crushing the enemy is as ancient as the Bible. Its first practitioner may have been Moses, who learned from God himself. Moses used this approach when he led the Jews out of Egypt. He parted the Red Sea for them to escape, and then let the water flow back over the pursuing Egyptians. Again, another scenario, when Moses returned from Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, he found his people worshipping the golden calf. He had every last offender slaughtered. As well as when Moses was dying, he instructed his followers to defeat the tribes of Canaan completely, without showing any mercy. Your enemies wish you ill. There is nothing they want more than to eliminate you. They may act friendly for the time, but this is only because you have defeated them. If you stop halfway out of mercy, you only make them more determined, and they will someday take revenge.
Then its solution?
The solution: have no mercy. Crush your enemies as totally as they would crush you. Mao Zedong, a devoted leader of Chinese history, knew the importance of this law. In 1934, the communist leader with 75,000 soldiers fled into the desolate mountains of western China. Chiang was determined to eliminate every last communist. And few years later Mao had less than 10,000 soldiers left. By 1937, when China was invaded by Japan, Chiang calculated that the communists were no longer a threat. Chiang had forgotten the ancient wisdom of crushing the enemy. Mao had not. 10 years later the communists had recovered enough to rout Chiang's army. In your struggle for power, you will definitely create enemies. There will be people who will remain your enemies no matter what. Do not take their hatred personally. The goal of power is to control your enemies completely, and to make them obey your will.
Can't we negotiate with them? So that both parties will settle happily.
Negotiation is the insidious viper that will eat away your victory. So give your enemies nothing to negotiate. Allow your enemies no options. If they have no options, they will be forced to follow your command. Remember the lessons of history, and the wisdom of Moses and Mao: never go halfway. A viper crushed beneath your foot but left alive will rear up and bite you, with a double dose of venom.
Are you saying to murder every enemy?
It is not a question of murder, it is a question of banishment. Sufficiently weaken your enemy and then exile them from your court forever. They must not have any hope of recovery. If you cannot banish them immediately, then plot for the best time to act. This law should very rarely be ignored. But it does sometimes happen that it is better to let your enemies destroy themselves. When you have someone on the ropes, you might let them hang themselves. But only when you are sure they have no chance of recovery.
Crush your enemies as totally as they would crush you. If one ember is left alight, fire will eventually break out. Crush him, not only in body, but in spirit. Do not take your enemy's hatred personally. Allow your enemies no options. If they have no options, they will be forced to follow your command. When you have someone on the ropes, you might let them hang themselves. But only when you are sure they have no chance of recovery.